life. Now here's your host, Oscar Hines.
Good morning, Houston. This is Oscar Hines. There we go, live. I can hear me now. Good morning. This is the Natural Nation Network. You are coming off of a stimulating conversation with Mr. Paris Ely in the Morning Magazine. And now I have the privilege and the blessings of three amazing ladies that I absolutely love and adore that are in the house. Wellbeing Simplified is back. Round of applause for Wellbeing Simplified. I love these ladies and the amazing information. And good morning, Miss Alexis. I feel like I have been jilted. I have not seen you in a number of weeks now here on Natural Nation. Yes. Well, that's in dog years. That's like what, 15? I'm not. Oh wait, now I'm calling myself a dog. Is that somehow that didn't work out right?
Yes, welcome back to me. Thank you. I miss being here as well, and all my Synergy family.
Yes, well, like the first week, it was something about like she was working with these oil men that I got a little jealous, and then last week it was like jury duty. So did you like convict anyone, or were you?
No, they actually didn't pick me.
Oh, you had jury duty?
I had jury duty last week. Yeah, and so I hadn't been selected ever. This is my first time ever having to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I almost called to reschedule. But let me just go. Let them know what's going on so I can get back to work. And then the week before, it's month-end close. If anyone's in the accounting, you know how sometimes you have to stay there and go through that process. So that's why I wasn't here, but I'm back.
You're back. Well, welcome.
So you did the jury duty, or you rescheduled?
Went and then had to, they
didn't
dismissed me.
They
Yes.
just, okay,
Yes.
which is a good thing.
But at least you did your
Good
civic
duty.
duty.
I did my service.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's so
yes,
important.
yes.
I still play the I am the sole caretaker for a child card.
Oh.
My kid's going to be 18, and I'm going to be playing that card.
No, you
It's like my
That's
kids
pretty
are in
good.
school. Is
Yeah,
anyone
you're
listening
right.
that's a judge here?
I hope not.
I did
Well-
see that option. I thought about my dad. I was like, well, he is sick and he can't really take care of himself. Let me go.
And he does
But
act
I did.
childish
He
from
told me
time
to
to
pull that
time.
card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously,
Yeah,
I
you did.
still do it.
Well, the challenge is if you consider the fact that you're going to fight traffic to go downtown, and then they're going to pay you $12, and you're
That
going to pay
much?
like $15 for parking.
Yes.
It's like, really?
I'm in the red.
Yes, exactly. I'm already at a deficit at this point. But anyway, let's talk wellness. That is absolutely the thing that you all are so amazing at. And, well, amongst other things, I should not limit your skill and talent to just wellness.
Lying to the court.
That's right, just with a straight face. So, folks, welcome. We are here talking to Wellbeing Simplified. Dr. Tracy and Heather are here, and it is always amazing to have you. We started drilling down on the R's and really getting into the sort of heart and soul of this, and we were talking about rejuvenating and some of those different areas. So where do we go from here? Where do we go now that we're getting into the deeper aspects of Wellbeing Simplified?
That's a good question.
Where are we?
Well, just to recap for
Yes.
those people that are new
Yes.
or who have forgotten over the break, because
Yeah,
it's
it's
all
been a
right.
few
Have
years.
a good, if you have kids, a good break. And spring fever is hitting, right?
Absolutely.
Isn't it a beautiful day?
I love
Yes.
it.
So Wellbeing Simplified is predicated on the belief, and we both strongly believe this and live this, well-being doesn't have to be difficult. Health and wellness do not have to be difficult. And we get information bombarded all the time with you have to do this to be healthy, you have to do this to be healthy. If you start with our basic protocol of lifestyle changes, it's amazing what the body can do to heal itself. The body is a self-healing machine. It was made to heal itself. So all we're doing is we're teaching people to do these things so that you're giving the body the opportunity to rejuvenate and become healthier and heal itself. So we've got 3 R's. We've got release, we've got rejuvenate, and reinvent. So today we're talking about release. And I talked last time about the more physical body aspect of release, and I actually talked about sleep and the importance of sleep, because sleep is a time when your body does a lot of releasing, believe it or not. You do a lot of detoxification, and specifically detoxification of the brain.
Yes.
So if you want to protect your brain, against things like Alzheimer's, dementia, even just memory loss. You want to be able to focus more and be healthier. You need to have adequate sleep so that your body can detoxify the brain cells.
Yes. I meant to ask you when we were talking about sleep. Not that I'm really weight conscious, but I have one of those scales that like measure everything right down to the ounce, right? And I noticed that I always lose weight when I wake up in the morning. So I like weigh myself before I go to bed, and then. So what's happening? What is that process?
That's actually
There's so many funny things you could say about that. She's like, detox your brain.
yeah.
There you go. Yes,
out.
that's right. We already figured that we're 90% of our brain is fat, so we all really are fat.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Actually, two things are happening. One is you're releasing a lot of moisture through the lungs. So as you're breathing at night, you are detoxifying through the lungs, but you're also releasing a lot of moisture because as the dry air comes in, it's moisturized through the lungs and you breathe it back out again. And the other is that you're sweating. We don't realize that we release a lot. We release a lot of dead skin
Some
cells
of us
too.
do realize we're sweating. Like I sometimes.
I know. When I wake up in the middle of the night.
I agree.
At your age,
Yeah.
too.
Yes.
Yeah, I wake up sweaty
Gosh.
sometimes. It's,
Yeah.
I thought that was
I don't know
like
what it is. I don't know
y'all
what
are
it
not hot
is. But
flashers.
sometimes
No,
I do.
but you still the night sweats. I've been doing
Night-
night sweats since I was in my 20s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's when the
Some of
liver
us
is
just-
detoxifying at night,
Okay.
and especially during that kind of 1 to 3 o'clock in the morning. If you're sweating a lot, that's just a sign that your liver's detoxifying. And sometimes not sometimes, but it's always something to look at. And then in the morning, so you have lost that weight. Just think about it as this is water weight, and you need to drink some water to rehydrate.
That's good.
which goes back to our phase 1 and Wellbeing Simplified with our 3 R's. Our very, very first principle is hydration. And when we're releasing, we're in phase 2 now. So we're releasing still, but we're now doing that through sleep with Tracy's part. But her very first thing she taught us in the very phase 1 of release was that hydration piece.
Yes.
So, you're fasting at night, but you're also losing water.
Yeah.
And some of us are more aware of it when we are sweaty.
Yeah.
Or not, it's happening.
Yeah.
Yes.
And all those skin cells, not that weighs a lot, but you certainly have, they talk about needing to change your mattress every few years because it's full of dead skin
Oh
cells.
Absolutely.
yeah. That's not very comforting. But
I know.
And then they show the mites and all that
Oh,
kind of stuff.
I
Yeah,
just
that
can't even
could
watch it.
gone
Yeah,
my whole
I
life
know.
without knowing that.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. I could too. I'm up in the middle of the night thinking I'm getting bit or something.
Exactly. That might be a little bit of buzzkill. Oh, no
Yes.
pun intended.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Heather's
Wow.
going to talk about this second part, which is more the mind, emotional part of releasing in phase 2.
Yeah, so, we've got, Tracy mentioned one of our tenets in Wellbeing Simplified, and if you missed phase 1, not to worry. It's all on our website, wellbeingsimplified.com, but, at the same time, you can actually start reinventing your own health at any entry point. And it can
True.
be tiny little baby steps. It could be drinking half your body weight in ounces in water. And that could just be all that you do. And I guarantee you will see shifts in your body and in your mind. It could be that you just kind of up the ante a bit on your sleep and just play with a little bit of sleep hygiene. Get some of the EMFs out of the bedroom. See if you can sleep an hour or 2 more. See if you can go to bed at the same time at night. Some of those hygiene principles that we talked about last time. So there's no prescriptive formula in terms of, I must start in phase 1 at release with hydrating or with breath work. We're on phase 2. Tracy talked about that release of sleep. The idea is that, Tracy mentioned this, our body has an innate ability to heal itself. If we sometimes just give it a little bit of an edge, just little things. And so today, what I love about this release part is, and here's another idea, is that our minds and our bodies aren't separate. So as much as Tracy and I like to think we're a tag team and she takes more of the physical, we're like Siamese
twins, exactly.
Yes.
because they are so connected.
Yep.
So it's like sleep is as much of a mind game as it is a physical
Yeah.
game, a mind detox as much as it is a physical release. And same with what I'm going to talk about in phase 2 under that first R release. We're going to talk about holding acupressure points for stress release.
Nice.
Now, that said, When we hold acupressure points, we are telling our body at a physiological level to reset, reprogram, and release. That's physical.
Yes.
But at the same time, we know that we hold emotional toxins in the body just as readily as we hold physical toxins. So it is very much, acupressure is very much of a kind of an emotional and a mind release, especially if you want to talk about the nervous system part of it. Being kind of stress, being in a mental or an emotional. Most of us think of stress, as a mental or an emotional thing, but it's very much a physical thing. It's all connected.
Yes.
So acupressure points. Now, I am not an acupuncturist. I am not a doctor of Chinese medicine. I know a tiny little bit about acupuncture, and I use it with my clients. Okay, you don't
Acupressure.
Acupressure. Yeah, I do not use needles.
No needles for
Thank
those
you.
needle-phobic people
Right.
out there.
So that's a great faux pas because they're different. They're very similar, but they're different. So acupuncture is what you think of when you go and get the very small needles and certain meridian endpoints to release certain or reprogram certain parts of the body, kind of at an energetic standpoint, that chi in the body that may be blocked. Acupressure is predicated on the same idea, but we use our fingertips instead of needles. So for those that might be needle phobic, for those that don't want to get their doctorate in Chinese medicine and just want to be able to do a few simple exercises that we're going to talk about right now to release stress out of the body, acupressure is very accessible.
And free.
And free,
And
yeah.
free. We can perform
do
it
it
on
yourself.
ourselves.
On
Yeah,
yourself.
you can do it yourself.
That's
Yeah.
excellent.
It's
Well,
a self-healing modality.
So before we delve into it, because we're right up against our first break, but the
Sure.
beauty of this is we have you for. I love when we
Yeah.
have for a whole hour. This is huge.
More time, yeah.
Yes. So want to really have folks think about what you're talking about with regard to being able to apply these pressure points, and you'll be able to show us some of these, right?
Right.
So folks, those of you listening that can get to your Facebook, go to your Facebook now. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Dr. Tracy and Heather are going to talk about these pressure points.
Yes.
I'm excited. I'm
Yeah,
interested
I'll
in
do
finding
some
out
on
more. Oh, wow. As long as you don't do like the Vulcan mind meld or anything.
That's what I was thinking. We're going to do
that
it.
one yet.
And then I'll fall out. Okay, well, excellent.
It works.
Let's take a break. We'll be back in just a moment. You are listening to Wellbeing Simplified here on the Natural Nation Network. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, so folks, you're listening to Wellbeing Simplified here on the Natural Nation Network. We are here with Tracy and Heather from the Heights of Health, and we're having a great conversation. And just before our break, we were talking about these pressure points.
Yes.
That apparently exist on our bodies that we can use to help to sort of release things, yes?
Yes, and I think that many of us intuitively know about these points. You made a funny joke about Star Trek, the
Yes.
Vulcan. If those of you that don't know what Star Trek is, it's an age-old show, movie, concept,
Yes.
cult following.
Yes.
But even in a show like that, they called it with the Vulcan hold, or I don't know, whatever.
Yes.
But anyway, we demonstrated it on break, and it's just holding 2 points on the shoulder here. Those happen to be 2 stress release points that I was going to teach today.
Wow.
And so
You can rub it
many,
a
I
little
know.
bit.
So
I know.
Mr. Spock did know what he was doing.
He did.
Wow.
And it's funny that many of us, whether they did or didn't, that our body, that innate intelligence we talk about a lot, our body knows. It has an innate intelligence, which is why we have that ability to heal. And so we do things like this.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
Pressure.
points. Those
Yeah.
are my oh my God points. They also happen to be called neurovascular points or frontal eminences that are right here in my forehead that if pressed and held, and I'm going to teach that exercise at the end because it's probably one of my favorite and most powerful, you can reprogram what's happening inside the brain and inside the body. But we do that instinctively. Don't we put our hand to our heart or we put
Yeah.
our hand to our forehead
Yeah.
to bring that blood back where it belongs, to bring that blood back to my thinking brain or to bring that blood back to my feeling brain. And so we do have that innate intelligence, so trust it. And I want to say that not being a certified doctor of Chinese medicine or an acupressure specialist, I do want to say, though, trust your instinct. If you've got this instinct to, kind of rub here, do that. this right here are anger points. You know, this bone right here on the side of our eye, if we tap on that or if we hold that,
The temples.
not just
Not
the
the
temples,
temples.
but go a little bit closer to,
Oh, okay, I feel it.
yeah, to that bone. And that bone on that side of the eye, just a little bit away from the temple, closer to the eye socket, is an anger point. And so, you know, if you find yourself kind of just going, oh, you know, I always do that. You know, that might just be that you need to release some anger out of the body that's stuck, whether you're aware of it consciously or not. So trust yourself is rule number one. So
And just to add with that too, Heather, with being a health coach, is that stress is the number one weight gainer as well for women and men too who stress. And so learning how to de-stress and manage it with those pressure points are definitely key.
That's a great point. And it's something that you can do on the fly easily that doesn't require you to drive to Memorial Park and run 3 miles like you and I were talking about on break. You know, which is one of our go-tos, and that's fine, but that's not for everyone. And so that's a great point. You know, if you're struggling with your weight, there's other ways besides, you know, running a marathon or, you know, eating, you know, a very strict diet that you can actually implicate what's going on in the body that's keeping that cortisol level up and keeping that weight on the body. Keeping that stress hormone, the cortisol, will keep weight on the body.
Absolutely.
Let's get that stress hormone down. And there's other ways, acupressure points, to do that. What were you going to say? You were about to say
No.
something.
I do think it's amazing. And what I was going to say related to that is the body does not know the difference between physical and emotional stress. There's the mind-body connection. So when you're faced with an emotional stressor or a physical stressor, it's translated into the same biochemical processes. So you can have a physical stressor, like almost getting into an accident or getting into an accident. Your body produces the adrenaline, but then produces the cortisol and so on and so forth that cause the weight gain. But then you can have the emotional stressor on top of that, or separate from that. Your body's going to react in the same way in terms of stress hormone being released, and then the weight gain and that cascade of inflammation and all kinds of things that can happen down the road.
Wow. I've noticed that sometimes, like, I remember it was really apparent one time I had a really stuffy nose, and then someone almost hit me. And in that moment where I had to react, it's like all of a sudden I could breathe. I was like, wow, the body just said
That
breathe,
works.
because you are about to get into some serious stuff and you better be prepared to handle it.
What a great point, because doesn't that happen oftentimes when we go through that shock or that fight or flight, that our sinus is clear?
Yes.
Like,
So
I need that.
That adrenaline shot. So it looks like we have it within ourselves to sort of treat or cure any of these ills almost instantaneously if we just knew how to concentrate that energy.
So I'm going to show you 5 of my favorites. Remember, stress doesn't happen to us. It's not the car about to hit us as much as it seems like it is. Stress happens in us, and it's about learning how to manage our stress response. And so acupressure is one way that we can do that. I'm going to show you the 5 that I chose to show you, and then we can talk about like the leg one and that you and I were talking about.
It would be hard to show on the.
It would be hard, and which is one of the reasons why I chose what I chose. And then also, it's hard, like if you're driving, let's say, and you're stressed out. You know, many of us living in a big city, that is a stressor that's happening seemingly to us, but really more in us, because I might be like chill pill, you know, driving in traffic, but it makes you cray-cray.
Right.
So, you know, like that, you know, we want something that we can do on the spot while we're driving, but also drive safely.
Yes.
So I'm going to show you 5 that you can do where you drive safely, where you don't look too silly. The first 2 are right here on a hand. Now, you never have to hold both sides of the body, because we have basically what acupressure points are is they are points that are the end of meridians. Now, meridian are energy flow through the body. Think of like veins as pushing blood through the body. Our meridians, and we have 12 of them, our meridians push the energy, that chi, that prana through the body. And you can feel it. If you do this kind of work long enough, you can feel it if your energy is blocked. And there are ways to unblock it, and this is one of the easiest and quickest way, is to hit an end point and just kind of say, oop, open back up. You know, it's like turning the dial back on and letting the energy begin to flow. So 10 of our meridians are aligned with organs. Okay, so they say, like, you hear things like kidney meridian, liver meridian, and, you know, maybe one day we'll talk about, how to trace those meridians with our hands to really kind of like if you're having problems with the liver or having problems with the kidneys, how to really fortify those organs using the energy of your own hands. But for today, we're going to look at 2 points that are either on your hand or just below your hand that, again, you could hold. Now, granted, you're driving, so let's be really careful, okay? Maybe at a stoplight, let's say. The first one I think many of us are aware of, and if you've ever been pregnant, someone told you about this one because it really helps with morning sickness, it helps with nausea, it helps with motion sickness, and it helps with anxiety. And this is called your union valley or your hand valley. And it's that web in between the pointer finger and the thumb. So find that webbing that we as humans have between your pointer finger and your thumb. And using your opposing hand, just your other pointer finger and your other thumb, just give it a pinch, that webbing. And energy is energy, and energy is transferable. So if you're not hitting the spot exactly, it doesn't matter. If you're on that web, you got it.
Well, and those spots are actually about the size of a quarter.
About the size of, most acupressure points, you're going to, and it's in energy transfers. Yeah, it's about the size of a quarter. So you're going to hit it. Most acupressure points, if you're hitting it properly, are a bit tender. So go up just a little bit where you feel the tendon a bit there. Feel it now?
I felt it.
Okay. Yeah. That's where you want to be.
It makes me go,
okay. If you're
like
holding your acupressure points and you find that you sigh within moments of holding it or a minute of holding it, or yawn, pat yourself on the back when you're finished because you just did a release. Yawning and sighing are beautiful healing mechanism signs that you have released. I always sigh. And when I do some other modalities, I yawn often. Okay, so we're holding that point. Now, the good thing about acupressure is that you don't have to really do much else. Okay, if we're holding stress and our mind and our bodies are talking, this is a physiological thing that we're doing. But we're telling the body to release the stress.
Does it matter if it's the right or left hand?
No. Okay. So I didn't finish my sentence, sorry, about the meridians. So the meridians go up both sides of the body. So, and they're mirror images. So either valley, either hand valley, either webbing in between the thumb and the finger will work.
can I add something to
Yes.
this? So the body holds emotions, and it's like a map. We talk about this. I used to do iridology, where the iris of the eyes is like a map, but the body gives us amazing signs. And different parts of the body will show us things. And interestingly, the left side of the body is more related to the past. It's also related more the feminine side,
Right.
but it's related to the past. What you're holding on to, the right side is more going forward. So if you know specifically you're anxious about something in the future,
Love it.
a change, do your right side.
Right side.
Or if
makes
it's male related, your
Yes.
spouse.
Us
or
right now.
Us lousy men.
Yes.
No.
Or
All the women right now, grab your right hand.
Every woman's got her right hand.
Grab your right hand.
She put it in a vice grip.
just walk around with it all day long.
That's
No.
Yes.
But so you can think about it in those terms
I
too.
like that.
Yeah.
That's a really good little tidbit.
That is great.
Yeah. So the right is your more male. So oftentimes if you're constantly getting issues with your right eye, what is it that you don't want to see
Yes.
about your dad issues, or confront with your dad. So that's a good one. Or the future and the past. I like that. I've never.
Well,
taught
and if
that.
you think about that, most people are right-handed, and you take off with your right side. Yeah, and your left is left behind. What you left behind.
Oh,
Wow.
that's
a
good.
good way,
Good way to
think of
remember it.
That's a really
That's
good
how
way
I
to-
remember
to
it.
think of it.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm loving this because that's good. You just added to my quiver here, my arsenal, as
Yeah.
it were.
Yeah.
So no, that's actually great. The left and right could be right going forward,
Yeah.
left going
Back.
backwards. So the past. So why don't we take another break here, because when we come back, we'll look at some of these other pressure points. But so far, we've learned about
hand
this
valley.
webbing, the hand valley.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
And
great
it's going to
for
help
people.
if you have a headache or
Yeah.
if you're nauseous also. But it's a huge stress release. Tracy said
Yeah.
she had an immediate sigh.
Wow. So headache and nausea. And I noticed it does. It relaxes you when you sort of
Yeah.
press in there. So, wow, good
My
stuff,
go-to.
folks. So you are listening to
using
Wellbeing
this.
Simplified here on the Natural Nation Network.
the
We're
right
going to take a
side
break.
all
When
day.
we come back, we're going to continue with these acupressure points that you can do at home in a safe space when you're not driving, right?
Yeah, or at a
Okay.
stoplight.
Or a stoplight. Okay, we'll be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere, folks. All right, we are back. You are listening to the Natural Nation Network here on Synergy Radio, and we've been having some interesting conversation. Of course, during the break, we were listening to Kung Fu Fighting, so there's like pressure points, right, that you can totally,
perfect.
like I was going to say, you know, I didn't know you all had that on your resume, like just deadly, like pressure points as well.
Austin's just trying to make us look good.
That's right. That's right. Well, you know, it's an interesting thing, and I actually love Anthony Bourdain. I hate to that's a free, shameless plug, but they were talking about the martial arts, and they were talking about how the really good martial artists in Okinawa do what they call open hand fighting, as opposed to closed fist fighting.
Yeah.
And they were saying that these guys with the open hand fighting, they focus on pressure points, like when they open and they hit. They're hitting
Yes.
key pressure points that drop their opponents, and those are the real masters of the karate and kung
They
fu
know
arts.
how the body works.
They know how the body
Incredible.
works. So
Yeah.
so just before our break, we were
good
talking
point.
about these meridians and the 12 meridians in the body. We covered the webbing here between the hands. What's next? What
Okay,
else?
so next you've got one. So you're on the hand. If you want to just really get a little more bang for your buck, the next one is on the wrist, and it's about 3 fingers below that break between the wrist and the hand. Again, like Tracy said, we've got about a quarter, or more, and energy is transferable. So don't be crazy about hitting it exactly. I'm away from my microphone. Sorry, Austin.
Yeah.
So about 3 fingers below the wrist and the handbrake, and right kind of in line with that middle finger. And you can feel it. If you clench your wrist and then look at your hand, you can see that tendon.
Yes.
See that kind of like valley there? That's about where it is, where that hole is between those tendons when you clench your wrist. So notice how that's right about there where the middle finger is kind of aligned if you follow it down. Again, don't be crazy or anal about this. So about 3 fingers down, you're just going to hold it. And again, just kind of play with it and just see if you can find a little bit of a tender spot. I like to rotate around, especially on this one. I like to rotate around in a clockwise fashion.
Yeah.
And at about 1 minute to 2 minutes, if you don't have that long, it's okay. Every little bit counts. And you don't want to put so much pressure that you restrict the blood flow, but just enough pressure that you're kind of affecting and waking that energy back up.
Wow.
And just notice, awareness is 80% of our work, this mind-body work that we do. Notice what happens in the body. Notice what's happening. Almost feels like just with all of us doing this, I can feel the energy going down.
Yeah.
And
Go to sleep.
yeah. Okay,
Wow.
if you notice that. Because for some of us, we have certain points or certain exercises that we do that energize us, and for the same exercise, it might relax us. And so if you notice, Alexis, that one relaxed you, that's easy one to do while you're laying in bed. Just to hold that point there on the wrist, just about 3 fingers below the wrist. So those are 2 easy ones. You got your hand valley point. That one's actually called PC6.
PC6.
Don't worry about it. It's just call it your wrist spot. About 3 fingers down, right there in that little valley between those tendons, and rub it for about 1 minute.
So these are great things too, and I know you're going to talk about this later, to do with kids. If they're anxious before a test or they can't fall asleep at night. And Heather, I know you're going to give some tips later that would be make this even more effective for kids. But sometimes my kids stressing me out, or me allowing my children to stress me out, is more stressful than my day-to-day life. Knowing that my child is stressed, anxious about something, it's like it just magnifies everything. So if I can help them be calm and help myself be calm at the same time, it's like, huge.
So this one is supposed to energize you or calm you?
This one is, all of these are releases.
Okay.
Okay? So when I think about acupressure and the particular ones that I showed you, and I'm going to show you one that actually in particular helps with focus and concentration. Okay. The 5 I chose, if you were going to hold me down, I would say calm you, relax you, release that does not serve me. So these are stress release. I'm picking 5 that are actual stress releasing points because we're talking about this release part of Wellbeing Simplified. And so most of us, when we think of release, we think of a toxin. And when we do acupressure work, we're thinking usually of an emotional toxin. And so think anxiety. If you really wanted to boil it down, these 5 points are going to help you release anxiety. We know that the hand valley that I showed you with the webbing also really helps if you're having motion sickness or if you have a headache or nausea. It helps a whole lot with that as well. But it tremendously helps with anxiety. Your PC6, your wrist point down here, 3 fingers below your wrist break is going to help with anxiety. Let me tell you one more thing about this. Oftentimes, I told you that these are endpoints or there's certain special points on the line of a meridian, and meridians are usually connected, most of them are connected to an organ. And so this one actually happens to be in the pathway, the one that's the PC6, the one that's just below your wrist, is on the pathway of the heart meridian. And so by holding this, I don't want to get too complicated, and also I'm not a doctor of Oriental medicine, but what I can tell you and what I know and what I practice with my clients and works for me is that this helps with anxiety release, and it helps rebalance that coherence in the heart and that heart space. So if you're having troubles, let's go to that relationship again. If you're having troubles with relationship, you're having troubles in your heart space, hold it. If it's with a guy, girls, hold it on your right side. Tracy taught us that before a little bit ago. Guys, if it's with a female, or if you're a guy that you're having trouble with male, just, male is our right side, female is our left side. So it also can help rebalance that emotional heart space, that relationship piece. It's on our heart meridian. But
that's fascinating. I was going to add to that just another little point of trivia, because they say some people retain water, I retain trivia. So
yeah, you do. You're good.
I know.
So the ancient Egyptians actually was the ones that instituted the custom of wearing our wedding band on our left finger. And that was basically because they believed that connected to the heart, and that once you put that band on there, it would prevent you from falling in love with someone else.
I love that. Ancient Egyptians. And now I'm analyzing this.
Yes.
And so maybe we need to and it just makes sense that, I said go
It's
from
right
your,
there.
but it's right there if we're
right
going
there.
with Tracy's quarter,
Yes.
concept that we're hitting that finger.
So-
Interesting they chose the left hand, though.
I know.
Yeah, they chose the left hand, so
Yeah.
it's the heart space.
The hearts, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and they really believed that the brain, for a very long time, they actually believed the brain was just sort of a tool that we used for thought, but the real thing was the heart.
They knew it.
They cherished the heart more
Yeah.
than the brain, and as we discussed, Heather, the
Yeah.
electromagnetic frequencies of the heart emit at a much higher vibration. But it's probably no small wonder that here in this 21st century of stress and anguish and anger and frustration, that heart disease is the number one killer
Yep, good
and
point.
afflictor of people even to this day.
Yep.
So
We should make
interesting
that part of
correlation.
our
Hold
routine.
that.
Yes.
Yeah, hold your heart
Well,
space.
and
your
another
heart meridian.
thing related to the release part, you're not just releasing anxiety, you're releasing blocked energy. So when you think about this meridian, which is what you're saying essentially, if the energy is blocked, if you think about it like a scar or just something blocking the energy flow, you're opening it up, so you're releasing the flow of energy through your whole body by doing these acupressure points. So it's not just the anxiety, you're allowing your body to self-heal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is even, I'm not sure if it's a song or something, but it says the issues of life flows from the heart, and so that definitely makes sense
Yeah.
with the pressure points and the flowing with the meridians, everything, just being there. The issues of that we carry daily start at the heart and then flows through. So that's That's good.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I like that.
People are challenged by that all the time. Wow, this is good stuff. So of course I keep interrupting you. So you're getting into so we're getting into like this
I love
deeper
your
aspect of
ads.
this, but we still have 3 more to go. So
Yeah.
and this is our last segment. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, let's
got
go
it.
into those final 3
Yep.
and see about these pressure points. So folks, I hope you're learning a lot of stuff here. You are listening to Wellbeing Simplified. Go to wellbeingsimplified.com to learn more. And this is Tracy and Heather, amazing mind body specialists.
Specialist.
Let's take a break. We'll be back in just a moment, and then let's find out about these last 3 pressure points. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a moment. Radio. We are talking to Wellbeing Simplified, Tracy and Heather. We've been covering these acupressure points, and this is fascinating. We've learned some interesting points so far, and there are 3 more to go.
Yes.
Heather, so what are those?
Okay, so we're talking about release, and we're talking about releasing stress out of the body. So another of my favorites, now we're going to kind of move up to our neck and our shoulder space. The points, if you take your thumbs, you're going to rest them. I'm going to turn around just because this is being filmed. You're going to take your fingers and gently just rest them on the back of your skull here. Those aren't really... Well, I turned around again. So you're gonna rest the fingers. There you go, Tracy, on the back of the skull. Those aren't doing anything. You're gonna take your thumbs. That's gonna do the work, and find the base of your skull and move just below the base of your skull on either side of your spine. Got it? So you're just on either side of your spine, right below that bone. And then the fingers are resting, like you saw Tracy, they are just on the back of the skull just for leverage. And just push. Those are your gallbladder 20. Those are your GB 20. We also call those gates of consciousness here. I love holding these, and I oftentimes will hold these for clients, on clients. I will lay them down and hold these 2 points. Obviously, you can do them on yourself as well. And add an essential oil. So a lavender, so we do muscle testing in our clinic, and so I can actually do some muscle testing to see which one resonates, with someone's need, because a lot of oils help and amplify that release process. So that's your gallbladder 20 or your gates of consciousness. Hold that, I guarantee you, you'll sigh or yawn. The next come down to our shoulders. We've been joking this whole show about the Vulcan hold. The first one, and most of us are really aware. I mean, I'm going to show you, so really there's 6. I'm going to show you 2, but you can do them at the same time, the shoulder holds. The first 2 are right on top of your shoulders, right where most of us kind of instinctively, right on top. So if you come down like right where, women, where your bra strap might be, right there on that trap. That's right. And they should be sore. It doesn't necessarily mean you need a massage. It means you found the acupressure points. But that is where, I mean, Alexis, you were saying when we do get massages, that's usually where we want people to kind of stay and focus on, because we hold so much of our stress, so much of our trapped emotions in these shoulder spaces. Like Alexis was saying, those are our big muscles. And so they're capable of holding.
Holding more, yeah, absolutely.
So pushing there, but you can also kind of double your efforts by taking your thumbs and pushing on that very top where your traps are of your shoulder, and then using those available fingers. Tracy, you want to turn around and show us? So the thumbs are on the top of the trap, the very top of the shoulders that are facing up toward the ceiling, and then your fingers just rest almost instinctively about 1 inch to 1/2 inch right below that space on the backs of the shoulders. Not yet quite to the what's the bone there? I'm spacing.
Occipital.
The spine, not the spine.
The
anyway,
occipital bone?
just wherever your fingers land. So
Okay.
right here, right where you see Tracy holding.
Okay.
Yeah, on either side of the spine, like Austin said, either side of the spine, but a little bit more spaced out than your gallbladder 20. And just holding those there while you're also holding the tops of the shoulders. And it's a squeeze. It's the Vulcan squeeze.
Nice.
Big time stress release. Okay, my favorite for stress release is
Do we get a drum roll?
We get a drum roll.
Okay, the favorite stress release.
favorite one.
Heather's favorite.
Called
Okay.
your neurovascular hold. Okay,
Okay.
when I work with my colleague Cheryl Hensley, and I have a mindfulness program for kids called Present Time Kids. We call this one your pause buttons. We all have pause buttons, and they are in our forehead. They're also called neurovascular points. Now, back in the caveman days, they had that more of that pronounced frontal eminence right here, that bump right here on the forehead, and that's halfway between the eyeball and the hairline. Many of us still have that little protrusion more pronounced than others, but you have it. So just kind of rub along your forehead, right above each eyeball, and see if you can feel a slight bump there. That's where we want to go.
Even if you get Botox?
Even if you get Botox.
I'm just saying for those who are out there.
Those are out there, not you.
I mean, not me.
you.
I'm just saying.
Not you. Okay.
Botox isn't going to affect your bump, okay? It's going to affect the wrinkles, the lines. So you're good if you get Botox. All right, so again, you're going to use the thumbs to kind of just gently anchor and rest on the temples. Those are not doing, that's headache work, that's a different one. What we want to do the work are the fingers that are left to depress those neurovascular points in the middle of the forehead. Think about aligning your fingers above each of the eyeballs. Pupils, rather, above each of the pupils, halfway between the eyebrow and the hairline, and you'll find it. And press. You don't want to press so hard that you hurt yourself, but you want to give it a nice pressure and hold. And again, I like to go in a clockwise fashion, a little bit of a circular motion with my fingers. Now, when we do this, several things are happening. You are rebalancing your autonomic nervous system.
Nice.
You are bringing blood to that prefrontal cortex, which is the newest part of our brain. And this is the part of our brain that's responsible for being able to make decisions in the time of stress, being able to organize, being able to conflict manage, being able to release stress, using the beautiful mechanisms that we were gifted as human beings. We're bringing the blood up to the thinking part of the brain, as we say. If you want to make this the most powerful, you can hold your pause buttons or your neurovascular points with one hand using finger and thumb, and then take the palm of the other hand and press right behind that on the back of your head and push them toward each other. What you're doing with your other hand is you are desensitizing your amygdala, the stress part of the brain. What you're doing on the forehead, remember, is bringing blood to the frontal cortex, the thinking part of the brain. We are taking ourselves out of fight or flight and reprogramming ourselves permanently at a nervous system level. You can hold this and think about a stressful event and literally release trauma from something that has happened in the past.
Wow.
This is a time to actually think about the trauma because you're actually releasing. We don't want to sit around and think about trauma too much, but if you're doing something that gives the body permission to reprogram and to release, it's safe and effective.
So those listening on air right now, Heather was just holding the back of her head with her palm and then taking the two fingers, putting it on the forehead and lightly massaging it. And you say that if you think about trauma in those moments, something that you are trying to release, you will hit the trigger points to let go of that emotion.
Yep.
That is fascinating.
And reprogram permanently your system.
That's amazing.
I love that one.
That. Wow. That's good stuff.
It's called reprogramming your emergency response loop.
Wow. And you were talking about the sympathetic nervous system.
The autonomic nervous system, which has those two branches, the
Fight or
sympathetic,
flight.
which is the fight or flight,
The
and the rest, which is the parasympathetic.
Right.
So, I mean, for all intents and purposes, when we engage that frontal lobe, which is your neurovascular points in the forehead, you're stimulating that parasympathetic, that rest, renew, that think through it, that this isn't an emergency, I've got this part of the brain. When we hold the back of our head, that's that old part of the brain that says, there must be a tiger in the room somewhere, you know, and we're desensitizing that, the amygdala.
Wow. Wow, that's fascinating. You know, it was interesting as you were explaining that one piece where you're talking about the gallbladder and the release. I did a cranial sacral therapy session one time where they were holding that pressure point, and I went way back to a situation where I got hit by a car when I was only 3 years old. I just came to this country, and I was deathly afraid of straitjackets. Don't know why. until I went back, and it was almost like a regression. I learned that it was because after the injury, the trauma to my shoulder, they were holding me, and unaware, they were pressing into that shoulder. And that created an energy cyst that had lived in me till I was in my mid to late 30s, and she released it.
Energy cyst. I love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because we hold those balls of toxic emotions in our body, and you happen to hold it where the injury happened.
there.
Makes sense.
Exactly.
Smart body.
Yes, indeed.
Wow.
Good stuff. Oh, man. I hate that this hour is over.
Yeah,
You
no
see, we
further
just never get
information.
enough of you guys.
does that
That's the
happen?
problem. Guys, this has been a great conversation. You've been listening to Wellbeing Simplified. Tracy and Heather are located right in the heart of the Heights, at the Heights of Health. Beautiful facility with professionals that are there, able to work with you on a number of different things. But what I love is the mind-body approach that you all take, and the fact that there are such simple solutions to really being able to overcome these problems. And that's ergo the name, right? Wellbeing Simplified. Folks, to reach out to Heather and Tracy, 713-861-6777. That's 713-861-6777. Or simply go to Wellbeing Simplified. Not simply go to, but just wellbeingsimplified.com. And you'll find them. These amazing ladies, amazing spirits. Thank you so much for this information today. This was extremely educational. Thank you so
you
much.
for having us and all
Thank
your
you.
brilliant ads.
Yes.
know.
Wow. Well, we'll be back in a couple of weeks to have another conversation about the next point of release. So this is great. I love getting really deep like this, man. All right. So, folks, we'll be back next week, Tuesday at 11 o'clock. Stay tuned next for The Pursuit of Purpose. You are listening to Synergy Radio, 1480, 1540, 101.7 FM, and 94.9 FM here on the Synergy Radio Network.